So you're telling me the Bentley Continental GT shares a part with a Rover?
Why would Bentley make it sound like a drunk throwing up when you start it? Here we go, the follow-up video for the Bentley Continental GT, or as I like to call it, the automotive antichrist. Hopefully you've already seen the video with the initial walkthrough of this car, so you'll know how thoroughly unimpressed I am with it. Well, in this video, I'm going to attempt to try and tell you how much it's going to cost to fix some of the auto diseases this thing's got. Here's a quick recap. So as I've been driving around, I've started to notice some of these issues. Here goes. Headlining starting to sag. The start button doesn't work, but the car starts fine with the key. The armrest won't go down. Sat-nav isn't working properly. Aircon isn't cold. There's a creaking noise on full steering lock. Parking sensors don't work, and as usual on older Continentals, the rear speed activated spoiler doesn't work. Now since that video was filmed, there's two more issues I can add to the list. The driver's rear window is a bit wobbly, and the driver's window doesn't work at all. Now couple that with the fact that it's boiling hot at the moment, you can't open the windows and the aircon's warm, it's an even more unpleasant place to be at the moment. But I can start with some good news. You may recall me saying this. We all know that Bentley's owned by Volkswagen Audi Group, which means there'll also be some interchangeable VAG parts. And I have had a few wins. The spoiler now works. Yes! All thanks to my local friendly neighbourhood mechanic, affectionately known as the Bear, because he's pretty grumpy about most things, especially fixing cars and being on camera, and especially me. I just got to interrupt the video momentarily to give a mention to this week's fake video sponsor, Good Shag Carpets. Good Shag Carpets was founded by two friends who were frustrated because they couldn't find a decent shag pile carpet anywhere. So they started their own company. Now they're two of the most skilled shaggers in the world and have been shagging professionally for 15 years. The quality of a good shag penetrates deep down to the underlay. Whether you go for a full covering or maybe just your own little shag rug behind the sofa, you can even have a shag up the wall. Your guests won't be able to resist complimenting you on your shag and how it feels against their skin. Are you letting your flooring get you down? Is your carpet making you depressed? What you need is a good shag. Good Shag Carpets are a fake subsidiary of Car Triple TV. Terms and conditions don't exist. Go away, go away. Anyway, you can't catch COVID through a camera. Come here, come closer. So anyway, the other day I rang up the Bentley specialist who'd done the last few services on this car, and he remembered it, which is not a good sign, I don't think. I asked him about the spoiler not working, and he said he thinks the whole spoiler cartridge is gone. Spoiler cartridge? Is there such a thing? Anyway, he said the whole spoiler cartridge needed replacing, and it was going to be about £2,000 to do it. Now, I thought he was just fishing for business, but I don't think he was, because he then said to me, listen, you're better off just leaving it broken. But full credit to the Bear, he took it apart one afternoon and worked out that it was actually the motor that was broken. It was the teeth had worn down on the motor. Now, I called at the Bentley dealership to find a part, and they wanted almost £500 for a new motor. But a bit of digging around showed that it was one of the Volkswagen Audi Group interchangeable parts. And this motor had been used on the Volkswagen Beetle as a spoiler motor and on some Passats as a sunroof motor. So a quick visit to the electronic bay of auctions, and I found a spoiler motor for £45. Quite a saving, I think you'll agree. Next up, sat-nav works. Now I can only guess the story that goes behind this, but it turned out to be a broken sat-nav disc. I mean, how the f***? So I called up Bentley again, and they wanted like a cajillion pounds for a new disc set. But a bit of internet digging told me that the software they use on the disc is from Navtec. Navtec software is used by loads of manufacturers and is therefore interchangeable. So then I had to dig around on eBay, and I found a compatible disc for the very un-Bentley sum of £12. And it came from a, wait for it, Rover 75. Now on top of these bargains, there's been a few kicks in the undercarriage to go with it. The worst value so far was this little piece of trim here that goes down here. £205. Next up, the rear brake calipers were sticking. Bentley wanted £1,400 for new ones. I don't really know where they get these numbers from. Now these calipers are virtually identical to the ones used on the Audi A8, which cost around a quarter of the price. Identical, except for the fact that Bentley decided to move one of the bolt holes just a little bit over, meaning you can't use the Audi A8 calipers. Thanks, Bentley. Anyway, luckily for me, the Bear was able to strip them down and service them and unstuck them for a labour cost of £360. Next on the list was the creaky front corner that creaked on full steering lock. Now it turns out the air suspension strut wasn't leaking, and the likely culprit is the top strut mount. It doesn't look too bad, but I'm probably going to replace it anyway. Now Bentley prices are bonkers, but luckily it turns out to be one of the interchangeable VAG parts, so they can be found online for about £420. And then there's just a couple of hours labour to fit it. Parking sensors are going to require some further investigation. Now it could be a sensor, could be something much worse knowing Bentley. and it's probably going to be muchos expensivos, as they say in France. Now, the sagging roof lining turns out to be a common problem on older Bentley Continentals. Surely that can't be true on a £120,000 car, renowned for its build quality, I hear you ask? Well, it is. Now, last up is the air conditioning. Now, I don't know why, but it seems to blow warm, but I'm not even going to try and calculate how much this is going to cost. Could be a split pipe, could be a condenser, but the problem is finding the fault is going to be more expensive than anything else. It involves removing many pieces of car, and I'm just not prepared to throw that kind of money at this thing. Now that segues me nicely to the main reason for this video. One of the biggest issues with this car, aside from its complexity and its fragility, means that when it goes wrong, it's so complicated that loads and loads of bits have to come off the car, and the labour costs get really expensive. Really expensive. Listen to this. If anything needs doing to the engine, and I'm not talking like an engine rebuild, I mean like replacing a starter motor or a busted vacuum pipe, then the engine has to come out of the car, through the bottom. Now there's a well-known American YouTuber called Tavares who's actually really good with spanners. Now he took the engine out of his Bentley and he time-lapsed it for one of his videos, and it took him 3 days. There's a frightening amount of pipes and hoses and wires to disconnect, and when it comes out, it looks like a ball of spaghetti. What this actually means is, if you want to change the starter motor on your Bentley, you have to take the engine out, which is £2,500 in labour, before you even pay for the starter motor. And the dream of being able to run a Bentley on a budget, because of all the interchangeable Volkswagen Audi parts, has been cock-blocked by Bentley. Yeah, there are plenty of switches and motors and suspension gubbins that you can replace with cheaper, identical VW parts, but there are just way too many parts that are just for this car, or VW parts that have been buggered about with by Bentley just enough so that you can't use them, and then you have to buy them from Bentley at jacked up prices. Some owners call this the Bentley tax. A perfect example on this one, apart from the calipers, is the busted driver's window. It needs a new window regulator, which on a VW would be about £80. But of course, there isn't a VW one to fit this car, so Bentley want £440. They have you at their mercy and jack up the prices. Now, I don't mind spending money on cars, especially to resurrect something special or keep something interesting on the road, but this is going to require an awful lot of spending, and there's no guarantee that'll be the last of it. And like I said in the previous video, with the Bentley you just have this ticking time bomb feeling in the bottom of your stomach. I just can't justify spending so much money to maybe fix a car that I don't even like. In fact, I can't stand this car. I'm truly amazed that it's possible to take a bag of German parts and then mix them with some British parts and assemble them in Britain and come up with something that's worse than the sum of its parts. It didn't work with Range Rovers, and it doesn't work with this. This is the Morris Marina of German cars. So for those reasons, I'm going to sell it. I know I'm going to take a massive hit of like £3,000 or £4,000, which is really going to hurt. But it's not going to hurt as much as spending £3,000 trying to fix everything, and maybe not fixing everything, and it then being worth £3,000 less than it's cost me in the first place. It's a big lesson that I've learned. Never ever buy a Bentley. Borrow a brand new Bentley from Bentley and give that a glowing review like everybody else. So that's it, thanks for watching. If you're not already subscribed and you're enjoying the videos on this channel, please do consider subscribing, it really does help. Maybe leave a thumbs up, or even a comment down below. Maybe you agree with everything I've said, maybe you disagree, that's also fine too. Join me next week for a video that won't have a Bentley in it.